At the bottom of these slides, you can't quite see it on this projector, there's the URL for the canonical documentation. For finding these kinds of things out. So what about a custom icon? You can do that by simply specifying the location of a ping that the phone should use to actually store on the home screen. You can do pre-compose. So this is, again, we won't spend much time on these details, but a normal image is just an image that Apple will then add some sexy glossy look to it. But if you would like to do that yourself in Photoshop, pre-composed means you made it look sexy yourself. It should not do any special rendering of that icon. If your application is not very well designed or is very slow to actually load up because there's a lot of data or JavaScript or the like, well, you can specify that even this mobile web app, just this website, should first display whatever image you have in mind there. So let's actually see these in action and what we can do here. So let me go back to the appliance. Let me go into another file. Let's call it inputs.html, just to see some features that aren't actually mobile specific. They're becoming more trendy in the actual world of just web development, but they're making things more accessible for users. They're making things more user-friendly. And in particular, we have new attributes on the input element like this: auto-capitalize, auto-complete, auto-correct, many of which are annoying when the user is trying to type something in, placeholder, and then type. So you might recall from 50 or whenever you learned HTML that you have type equals text, type equals checkbox. In HTML5, you have fancy features like type equals email, type equals URL. Who cares? Like, why isn't an email text? Isn't a URL text? Like, what's the value add here? So it's actually not verification. Could be used for that purpose, but yeah, it's for the keyboard. So this is more about user experience. So if I go and pull up in, let's say, the simulator, this file here, inputs.html, not only do the fields look pretty nice, so they have the little gray placeholder text, email, and URL. Notice that if I, with my finger, or in this case the simulator, click on email, I get this keyboard here. Notice the @ sign. If I instead click on the URL, notice that it changes. So these are the little things, frankly, that will speak to the idea of user experience. And again, we'll spend more time fleshing out these details later on. But realize that you have these building blocks from day one. What else can we do? Well, we have a couple of other things here. Let me go back here. Let me pull up this example here. So Tommy could not be with us here today. But if anytime I do live demos with my phone, it costs me money. Let's see. Let me go in here. Let's go into parent directory. If you're wondering how this demo is going to end, it's going to end with a phone call. All right, so just so you can see what this actually looks like, and to give me an excuse for having set up this camera here. All right, so there's a real mobile device. And that's the same web page we just looked at in the simulator. I'm going to click that. So this is how you trigger things like this. So if you've ever used Yelp or Google or whatnot, and you want to trigger a call, it's just by using a different anchor tag, or rather a prefix of the href.
Oh?
Hi, Tommy. This is Computer Science 164.
Hi.
Where are you now?
Matter.
Oh, so you didn't. So you're not in class.
It's a long story.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So it works. So SMSs tend to get me in trouble in demos, so we won't do that one. But similarly, can you do SMS? And this all boils down to, much like in normal HTML, you have a href equals quote unquote mail to colon, and then you can trigger the opening of an email client. The idea here is the same too. You can simply use TEL colon or SMS colon so that the end result is as simple as saying, in the telephone case, something like this. So this is how we're making these things possible in a mobile context. It's as easy as that. And if you actually read through the W3C's recommendation, this is a group that we might make mention of from time to time. There is a standards body in the world known as the World Wide Web Consortium that over time rolls out new standards like HTML5, XHTML, and a whole range of others. And so if you're ever looking for an authoritative definition or answer as to whether something is supported in a language like HTML, the thing to Google is W3C recommendation. And you can actually get the grammar, if you've taken 121 or a similar course, that actually prescribes what these markup languages should look like formally. So that's not to say everyone follows them. Case in point, all of the things prefixed with Apple I mentioned a moment ago are very Apple specific. So everyone keeps going their own direction anyway. All right, what about this feature of m.harvard.edu or harvard.edu, whereby it redirects apparently to this, but like 5 seconds too late? So upon visiting www.something.com, how might the browser or server realize that, wait a minute, this is a mobile device. Let me show the user something else. Yeah, so you can look at the user agent field. So you might recall sniffing HTTP traffic with a tool like Firebug or Chrome or the like, and you can actually see that behind the scenes, not only do you send messages like get index.html or post to something.php, there's also a bunch of HTTP headers that say what browser you're using, what OS you're using, what domain name you just visited, whether your browser supports compression, and a whole bunch of more arcane features. So this is the user agent string that, as of the version of iOS running on my iPhone as of last night, actually sends. Anytime I visit a website on the whole internet, this information is divulged about me. So it's not particularly super secret, but it does tell a little something about you. Now, what's the upside for the server? Well, this is a horrific looking string. For some reason, years ago, the world just decided to come up with crazy looking user agent strings like this. And it changes every time Apple or Google releases a new browser. The version number or something in that string changes. So what does this mean? Well, server side, as Aaron said, you can actually just detect these kinds of things, right? You can use regular expressions, pattern matching more generally, and just figure out that, a user whose browser's just sent me this is apparently running, an iPhone, right? But yet it says Mac OS X, and yet it also mentions Gecko, which is a throwback to earlier browsers. So long story short, parsing these things is kind of a pain, right? You can very simply grep through it or search through it with like preg match in the world of PHP, and you can infer with some probability what it is. And so you could do something simple like this. So in PHP, if the regular expression iPad or iPhone or iPod matches what's in the HTTP user agent string, then what can you do? Well, server side, you can make the decision then, not 5 seconds later, to redirect the user to the mobile version of the website, which maybe is m.example.com or something else, before the user starts seeing the entirety of harvard.edu downloading. So by contrast, what trick was harvard.edu using apparently? Yeah. Yeah, so probably JavaScript, right? Anytime something happens in a browser that did not happen instantly, but rather after the page was downloaded, probably means it was client-side driven, and we can actually see as much. Let me go over to, in my normal browser, harvard.edu. We have a hunch that it is, in fact, JavaScript-based. So let me go ahead and view page source. I don't know what the offending file is going to be, but let me just search for .js. So that's Google Analytics, so that's probably not it. That's a comment. That's something. That's Twitter. That's jQuery. This is curious. Check user agent.js. So apparently harvard.edu is loading this JavaScript. Then it's executing check user agent, which is presumably a function inside of this file. So let's see what this is. Check user agent. And indeed, notice what they're doing. It's actually a little crazy. So check user agent is called. And then it's checking some query string. But ... My eyes have gravitated immediately to this jQuery call. Ajax means go make another HTTP request. So the curious thing, and I was delighted to find this as a lecture example, is that you visit www.harvard.edu in your mobile device. It downloads all the files and GIFs and JPEGs and JavaScript files. It then executes this function. It then sends a message back to the server and says, hey, by the way, what browser is this user running? Then it gets a response, apparently, to that success handler function. And it then calls, redirect mobile, passing in platform as an argument. So let's scroll down here. And there is the if condition that could have been several steps earlier in this process, checking, are you on an iPhone? And if so, what does it do? Window.location equals m.harvard.edu. So don't do it this way. Okay? There's many other ways to do this. And the irony is, I think the site is probably doing something quite smart, which is dynamically querying what kind of device is this, because those user agent strings are changing constantly. Even though we only know about Chrome and IE and Safari and the like, there are a lot of other browsers out there, particularly in mobile devices and other manufacturers, and the version numbers are changing, those strings are changing. So it would kind of suck if you built a website that's breaking constantly for some of your users. So what has become popular is these so-called web services, third-party servers that you can query and say, here's a a user agent string, what are the device's capabilities? What's its screen size? What is the browser type? What does it have JavaScript enabled or support or the like? Well, that might very well be what they're doing, but this is sort of the wrong decision point at which to do it. The right decision point would have been to do it in the context of the server with the initial request. But this is guilty of the lack of feature I criticized earlier. This would be a better example. So what am I doing in version 2 of this? Well, I'm actually concatenating onto the end of the mobile domain name the file that the user cared about in the first place. So this is that one-line fix that a lot of sites on the internet could definitely stand to benefit from in terms of experience. So when the time comes, if you're curious as to how to dynamically access browser information, frankly,